Oh, no, you're not.
There we go.
You've got to pay you properly now.
Hello again.
There we go.
Am I working? Yes. Lovely.
Get ready.
Right, next up on the live stage, we have our panel on whether consumers really do want to buy cars online.
Cars, I think.
Now, last year we saw Peugeot, Smart, Hyundai, Virtue, What Car, and many others all launch websites that enable buyers to complete their car purchases online, but all in slightly different ways. My next panel is going to investigate whether consumers really are ready to shell out for their next model in the digital world. So please welcome to the stage my guests. Welcome. Right, with me today, as you can see, we're actually missing one person. Unfortunately, David Peel was taken ill last night and sends his apologies. But we do have, Hasan Nergiz from Carwow, welcome. Rachael Prasher from What Car, hello. And Brett Ward, from who's the head of online retailing at iVendi. Hello. So, online car purchases, there are people out there doing it, but do customers really, really want to do it? And if so, when's it going to really take off? Hasan, maybe you can kick us off.
Thanks very much. I think to answer this question, which is very complicated, we need to break into down to the customer journey. So in Carwow especially, what we believe is that if the today and the future belongs to the blended sales channels, so omni-channel strategy. And if you look into different stages of the customer journey, as in the pre-purchase, purchase, and the post-purchase, there is a different requirements from the customers. So, for instance, in the pre-purchase, already we can see that the customers would like to get the full details and the information digitally online before they are interacting with the dealers. So this part is moving, or it has been already there, it's very digitalized. But when it comes to the purchasing the car and the post-purchase experience, the customers still require, and they would like to have a personal interaction with the dealers, and they would like to be reassured and have a personal reassurance from the dealers to buy the car and then have the servicing of the cars.
Rachael, what are your thoughts? I mean, there's lots of people out there who don't actually like going to dealers.
Well, there are lots of headlines about this, aren't there? And it's easy to make assumptions. So I thought rather than just wing it, we'd ask some of our audience over the last week. So we ran a little survey online with some very simple questions, which are exactly that, funnily enough. And actually, with the question, if buying online, would you still engage with a dealer? Only 7% want to avoid dealers altogether, which I think chimes with what Hasan is saying. So, if you break that journey down, as you've said, into the sort of pre-purchase research part, that is increasingly digitalized. It's easier to do that research online, and in many ways, that's the kind of easier part of the process. But in terms of fulfillment, that is still absolutely where the dealer industry must play, because that's really complicated, even for manufacturers. For the actual physical fulfillment of selling a car, from interacting with DVLA to having it delivered, everything like that is still complicated. And then, of course, you've got your post-purchase relationship. So we've got quite a lot of responses and information from this survey, so do come and ask us about it later. But in terms of why consumers still want to engage with a dealer, to organise a test drive before they buy is still 40% of consumers. This is 4,500 people, incidentally, last week. To meet the dealer to pick up my car is 19%, to organise delivery was 12%. So the overwhelming majority of consumers still want that dealer experience, but there is obviously a huge amount of the process that can take place online, making it very efficient for dealers, so that 40% who want to test drive a car, when they go in there, they're probably highly, highly likely to buy as a result of it.
Did you ask how many wanted to buy a car online?
We did. So we said, would you consider buying a car online? And actually, we break that down by new car, quality used, and then a sort of private purchase. And the results were pretty similar across all. So 63% would consider buying a car online. So that was 38% said yes, they would consider buying a car online. 25 said maybe, and 37 were very definite. I want to meet the car seller, which I thought was really interesting.
Incredible statistics. I mean, Brett, is that your experience? Would you think that many consumers want to buy their cars online now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just today released a white paper which covers a lot of this off. And from the people that we surveyed, just purely from a financial point of view, 55% are quite happy to take finance products and to complete that online. Dealerships aren't going to disappear. Retailers are here for an awfully long time because you said it was 97% still want to go in. Absolutely, people do because people have questions. Buying vehicles online is not going to be as simple as adding a buy button to the end of a process. There's the complexity of his part exchange and add-on sales and everything that goes with that purchase journey. But we just need to I suppose we need to be able to close more of it online. Dealers seem to be swamped with leads coming into the business, generally meaning that salespeople don't get back to consumers. Consumers get a poor experience and go somewhere else and sometimes get the same experience. So it's giving the consumers the ability to have that agile process where they can complete what they want to complete online, but while we're managing the process still.
It's going to be a huge investment for a lot of dealers to come up with a process that sells these cars online. There's probably a lot of people here who are probably a little bit worried about it. Can you give anybody practical tips on what they can do now to facilitate this need from consumers?
Absolutely. Our stand's literally there.
Nice plug.
Sorry,
I like it.
No plugging, sorry. Been cut off at that point. I listen to your consumers. Go out. There's a few people in the market that are offering solutions and systems that will help you along the customer journey. But just keeping on compliance, I think, is the main thing. There's a lot of people offering it. Not everyone's doing it probably the right way. We have a GDPR weekend upon us, and there's a lot that needs to be done to prep for that. But yeah, there's systems there that can certainly help that process now.
Rachel, how far do you think consumers want to go down the purchasing funnel on a dealer's website?
That's a tricky one. I mean, obviously in What Car we're going through quite a big evolution at the moment as we move from research, into what car you might want to buy to actually pricing on the site, and not dissimilar to Hasan at Carwow. But the role of dealers in that is still absolutely critical. There's a point at which we have to hand over to a dealer experience, be that straight into a digital platform, which would feel like a more frictionless way of doing it, or into dealership. But we're increasingly looking at the sort of fulfilling the sort of things that people want to get from their dealers. So can we hand them over to a point where they can book that appointment online to see their dealer, or book a test drive, or perish a thought, book a test drive to be delivered to their house, and they can have that experience themselves without a dealer sitting next to them. Everything that we're trying to do, certainly in What Car, is to make sure we hand somebody over at a point where they are very, very likely to convert. Because, your point, Brett, dealers are swamped with leads, and that customer experience isn't always brilliant because they're not, dealers aren't necessarily finding the time to get back to them. So you want to make sure that those opportunities to interact with the customer are as efficient as they can humanly possibly be. And I heard a statistic last week about test drive conversion levels. I believe it was 4-to-1 used to convert to purchase, and now it's almost 1-on-1. So if you can get a consumer into a car to test drive it, you're very, very likely to convert at the end. So I think the role that brands like What Car and Carwow, Auto Trader, and other media entities can play is to ensure that those consumers are absolutely ready to buy. These are really, really strong leads coming into dealerships.
Hasan, how long is it before Amazon start taking over and delivering cars by drones?
I think it is the question that everybody is in mind. I don't have the answer for it, but I would rather say it will be sooner rather than later. Having said that, with this kind of business models, we should also take into account that the dealer's role is very, very important when it comes to buying a car as a product. Car is still the second most expensive product, or the thing that a household is buying after real estate. And we should not forget that the car is beyond the commodity. The technology content within the car is ever increasing. So the industry is moving into a new acronym that has been reconfirmed in several events like this. It's called ACES. A stands for the autonomous, C stands for the connected, E stands for the electorate, and then S stands for the shared. So moving forward, already a complicated the cars, which you have seen also here in terms of technology, it will have even further technology content. So to sell this kind of a very, very highly advanced and the technologically complex cars, think about autonomous driving, level 5s, that is we are talking about. It's a really, really big revolution for the product and also the driving of the car. So I believe there will be still very important and the pivotal position for the car dealers. And beyond Amazon, I think the winning formula for any business model who will get the future is that involving car dealers and then working with them in a partnership, but in a complementary way. So moving into more maybe the salesman into the product genius, and then talking more about customer experience within the technology, and then benefiting from the third parties like ourselves here, and then to make the customer happy.
Can I just pick that up
Absolutely.
as well? Well, you'd need a big drone for starters, wouldn't you, to deliver a car online? I think I agree, but I do think there are some customers for whom it is a commodity. You know, you talk about it being the second most expensive purchase after your house. Yes, it is if you look at the total price of that car, but if you're looking at it as £150 a month, actually that weighs up pretty easily alongside your utilities and your phone bill or anything else. And I think there will be customers, either it's, you know, a very straightforward repeat purchase, or it's the second, third, fourth car in their household, or they're just not that into cars. Perisher thought saying that a place like this, you know, there will be some customers, and that's fine, because that doesn't mean there's no value for dealers still, because you still have this critically important role to play in fulfillment and after sales servicing for those vehicles. And I think, you know, there'll be a lot of discussion around this today, won't there? But the most important thing is making sure that you deliver an experience for your customer in exactly the way that they want to buy and interact with you. And there's still a huge, as we've seen from this survey, a huge number of customers for whom that interaction with a dealer at the, you know, in the sales process is still incredibly important. You know, if you're a car enthusiast, or this is an expensive car purchase, or you're just a very cautious car buyer, you know, there are lots of reasons why you're going to seek reassurance from your dealer. But there are inevitably people for whom this is just a commodity, and you need to, you know, rise and meet that opportunity as well, because it still remains an opportunity. It's just a different way of selling.
Brett, if Amazon did come along and offered cars online, do you think they'd work with dealers as partners, or do you think they'd come in and take over like they take everything else over?
Okay, that's a great question. Amazon would make the first call to work with partners, I suppose, and whether that's through a partnership or a tactical acquisition, that would be down to them. I think the collaboration is needed from a retailer, whether you class that as the retailers being the dealer networks or retailers being Amazon and the OEMs. For it to be done properly online, there's got to be a collaboration, because at the moment it's quite separated. And Hasan touched on this earlier, for manufacturers to retail their own cars online is proving really difficult, and they're all at kind of a turning point and realising that they need to involve their dealer network in it, which they do. And it's that, you know, they're all trying to, I suppose, put their hands on the customer data and have that ownership model the whole way through. And it's the customer's data. It's not the retailers, it's not the manufacturers, it's the customers, so you need to let the customer have control on that. So the other parties that are in part of that sales process need to work together on it for it to work well.
It's very difficult for manufacturers, though, isn't it? Because they are asking dealers to invest huge sums of money into dealerships, and then at the same time trying to sell cars to the same consumers online. Do you actually think that the industry is purposely holding back online car sales? Because let's face it, we are slightly behind the times, aren't we? Is it to protect the dealer's investment in these huge franchise dealerships they've been asked to invest in?
I don't think it's to protect the industry. I think it's because no one's done it really well yet from an actual retail process. People don't just want to buy cars online, but they want the opportunity to do part of that process online. So whether they want to go home and have a think about it on the Saturday night and make that decision with a partner after a glass of wine and dinner and say, actually, yeah, we do want that. Let's press the button and buy it, and then we'll go in and sort it out next week. We should be letting them do that, not trying to close them before they leave the doors. It's not what customers want. It's what the sales manager might want, because that's what we've always done, but that's not how customers want that journey to end now. It needs to be nice. It needs to be a process that is agile enough to cope with everything that the customer needs, not just what the sales manager wants to close at the end of the month.
Rachel, what do we need to see change for this to happen? I mean, what's holding our online car sales back, do you think?
Well, it's just picking up on that, the physical retailing. This idea that physical retailing it conflicts with digital retailing, I think is a myth. You look at a brand like Apple, who very, very successfully retail digitally, yet have this booming number of stores where people have, generally pretty positive experiences. And I think the same is true for dealers. I mean, the investment, as you've mentioned, that dealer groups and dealers are putting into their physical premises is mind-blowing, and they are incredible experiences. So actually, back to that point, the job is to get the consumers that want to interact with the dealer, to get them into these physical environments, because it is probably amongst the most pleasurable retail experiences you can possibly have. They're very slick environments. You sit down, you get a coffee, your kids are sorted out. They're fantastic places. I was in, I won't name the dealership, but a hugely invested in £10 million dealership a few weeks back. And the boss of that group took me around this, the service centre, and said, actually, if I'm coming in to buy, it was a JLR dealership. If I was a consumer coming in to buy, I'd be as curious to see your service outlet as I would the front of house sales showroom, because it's mind-blowing. Because actually, the long relationship I'm going to have beyond the car itself is how you're going to look after my car and the relationship I'm going to have with you. And when I walked through those doors, I was certain that this was the absolute best place that I could put my car that I'm going to spend a lot of money on. So, I don't think there's a conflict there necessarily with what manufacturers or dealers or anybody else is trying to do online and that physical experience. I think that physical experience is a massive sales tool in itself. It's fantastic.
But surely this is all about convenience. People are time poor now.
Yeah.
That's why we're buying stuff online
Yeah.
in our droves. Surely that's only a matter of time before that changes to cars, especially going back to your servicing point. I mean, do people really want the hassle of going to an out-of-town dealership and taking their car to be serviced, or would they rather you pick it up from their house, service it and drop it off 24 hours later?
Yeah, I mean, and that's absolutely right. But again, I don't think there's a conflict there. I might want to see that or look at pictures of it online and think this is an amazing place. My car's going to be happy and safe. Yeah, I mean, my dealer already picks my car up for, I'm on a service plan. He collects it and brings it back. It's really convenient. But I have that absolute reassurance that that the experience that my car is having when it's being serviced is a really positive one. So it is, and back to that idea of booking test drives. If I can book a test drive online, it can be delivered to my house. All those kinds of things. If I'm going to go into a dealership, let me make that appointment at a time that is convenient for me. Possibly even the evenings, because that's when I'm not working. So there are things that you can do to overcome it, but I think they work in harmony with the kind of current sales structure. They don't necessarily always have to conflict.
Hasan, Carwow obviously has a very slick platform when it comes to these sales. Is there any practical advice you could give to dealers here that they could take home, that you have learned in your business, that they could implement in theirs?
I think one of the most important benefits of doing business in digital is that you can create an ecosystem which you can have a really unbelievable insight to the data and the customer trends and the behaviors. This is where you can drive the customer preferences. Just before I answer this, I would like to just comment on your previous question, which is very very critical one if the industry is pulling back from the digital sales. I strongly believe, and in Carwow as well, that this needs to be answered by the customers. So in automotive environments, the average age of a buyer is 55 years old. This has been like this in the industry for a very long time. So then we are talking about the millennials, but the average age is 55. And we do also a lot of surveys, of course, because we believe in data, and then data should tell us the truth. When we ask the customers in our surveys about a lot of statements that they agree or they disagree, is 85% of them are saying that they would like to buy the car in person. So this is what the customers are saying. So, but at the same time, as you asked me in your last question, is that they would like to have the convenience. They would like to have the confidence, and they would like to have a frictionless customer experience. So our biggest advice to the dealers has been always, with our dealer partners, we try to train them about requirements of the digital customers. Number one thing is the responsiveness. Digital customers are extremely quick to contact, and also they would like to get the feedback immediately. Just one answer, just a data for that. Throughout the Carwow history, all the deals has been closed by our dealers. Is in 6 hours, 75% of the deals were won. So in other words, if you're a dealer that you would like to win at digital customers, you would like to conquest more customers there, and if you are ready only to answer or respond to customers in 7 hours, it means that 75% of the business is gone. So you will be fishing in the 25% of the market opportunity. So this is the reason we work with the dealers, with our systems, to make it slicker, quicker, and then removing all the pain points and the ideal time which the customers may go to another brand, another dealer, and another car.
So final question, how long before we have no dealerships and cars just sold online, Brett?
Out of my lifetime. I can't see that happening. People want that interaction, as we said. As you said, convenience plays a great part in it, but I think trust is a bigger part that's stopping people retailing online. Your experience of going to your retailer and seeing everything there, that's not to build we're going to sell you more cars. That's to build trust, so you trust them to do the job that they're doing, at which point when it comes to servicing, great, if they can pick your car up, which I've been retailer side, logistically it's a nightmare to do it for everyone, but it's great to have it done, then you haven't got to worry, because your car disappears and it comes back and it's ready and it's hopefully clean again and they've kept you informed with it. But it's difficult. Retailers have got a place in the future, definitely. And I think they'll work better with the manufacturers.
So I'll slightly rephrase it. When do you think we'll see a tipping point of more online car sales to physical car sales, Rachel?
I think that will be in my lifetime. I absolutely agree with Brett. Dealers will continue to play a role for as long as I can see into the future, but that role will likely shift. So it will become less about selling. When surveys we've done in the past, when consumers talk about not being comfortable with dealers, you get these sort of headlines around trust. Actually, it's around being sold to primarily. It's not necessarily about the dealer experience per se. So I think there will be a shift from selling to fulfillment. And I can only imagine that our OEM community will ensure that that relationship or that financial relationship shifts to reflect that, absolutely. But I can't see a point where dealers aren't absolutely critical to that whole car buying process.
Hasan, if you were going to put a time frame on it, how long would it be until we saw a tipping point?
I agree with my colleagues, obviously, here. And then I think, again, we are maybe looking for a very simple answer, and maybe this is not the answer. Therefore, the blended sales channels, and there will be definitely a portion of the direct sales for some customers, as already been spoken, that's repeat customers or the customers who sees this kind of purchase, not emotional, but more the commodity. But still, the answer and the future will be in a multitude ownership of the different kind of channels and to meet with the different kind of customers' requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. It's probably all we've got time for now. Brett has that white paper. He'd be happy to talk to you about it on the iVendi stand over there. Rachel's Whatcast stand should be able to give you a little bit more about that research that she's carried out, especially for CDX, who's just a stand over there. And Hasan will be over there on Carwow, so go and find them and ask them the questions. Next up, 11:30, we've got a half an hour break for you to have a little look around the expo. We're back here with social media, and is it really still the holy grail for car dealers? So come back at 11:30. Thank you very much.